Who were my most influential teachers? Thoughts on Ellyn G. Dudley. The internet and social media have been such a convenient way to reconnect with old friends and catch up on many pleasant memories. To no great surprise, it has been an almost unanimous agreement among many alumni that the early days of Robert E. Lee High School were the days of Camelot. The Hammett family moved to Bradley Drive in 1954, just about 3 blocks from the vacant lot of the forthcoming high school on Ann Street. If one could only have a crystal ball to see the future of the following 10 plus years, it would have been an unbelievable vision. I remember to this day playing around the construction site many times, filling my pockets with the coin-looking slugs from the electrical boxes, and marveling at the rebar, lumber, concrete blocks, plywood, and nearly endless construction materials. It was a kid's paradise. In the fall of 1955, Johnny Long began work with a group of neighborhood kids, which was to grow into a national championship band, and a group that was the center of the lives of hundreds of students for many years to come. The spirited sound of the band could be heard each afternoon throughout the neighborhood and worked like a magnet to lure a goodly number of fans to the field sidelines each afternoon. I was immediately hooked on the band like cocaine and spent the next 12 years of my life in and around the band as my primary social, musical, and academic outlet. Following in the steps of the already famous Hammett brothers, I was tagged by students and faculty as Little Hammett. I became somewhat of a mascot for the band. I was attracted to the drum line from the earliest times, and guys such as John Harrison, Jim Dinkins, George McCain, Johnny Haynes became my musical heroes. By the 5th grade, Dr. Long allowed me to have an extra uniform to wear in the stands and when I traveled to the away games with the band. Jim Dinkins would often let me play on his drum so he could better watch the game. Man, what a thrill. When I arrived as a sophomore student in the fall of 1964, we were called to the auditorium for a class orientation meeting. Principal Tim Carlton spoke along with other officials. Near the end of the meeting, Mr. Carlton looked out where I was sitting with some buddies on the 10th grade row and said, "Oh, I see my friend Little Hammett sitting out there. How long have you been playing the drums, Little Hammett?" I mumbled shyly, "About 10 years." He asked me to repeat what I said. I spoke up loudly and said, "Oh, I don't know." He said in front of the group he wanted to see me in his office after the assembly. When I met with him, he was friendly but firm. What I remembered from the conversation was his statement, "If you ever make an F at Robert E. Lee, I'm going to wear your butt out." I was a believer. As school progressed, I was on track toward becoming a band director as brothers Willie and George had done. Ken had taken an academic engineering path. A seed had been planted in my musical ear a year or two earlier by the Lehigh Choral Department. Prior to the construction of the Lee Auditorium and music facilities, the Glee Club and Choralees would hold their concerts at the Capitol Heights Junior High Auditorium, where I was a student at the time. I enjoyed the concerts very much. Something about those wonderfully blended voices, selection of a wide variety of music, soloists, trios, and happy atmosphere caught my ear and heart like nothing else. Soloists such as Susie Stevens and groups like Generals 3 added such a sweet icing to the choral cake. My first involvement with the choruses happened as I was asked to accompany some soloists and groups in a combo on my drums. It didn't take long for my interest and involvement to expand exponentially. I joined the other two major ensembles, Chorales and Glee Club, and expanded my network of musical friends by dozens and dozens. We had a stable of highly accomplished accompanists with this group: Rob Parker, Carol Palmer, Betty Burkett, and at least 6 or 8 more pianists provided an amazing foundation of accompaniment. Singers such as Ann Small, Betty Spruill, Sandra Denham, Frida Crumpler, Eddie Wolford, David Hoyt, an endless list, helped create a truly musical ensemble. Similar to the cult-like following of Johnny Long, Ellen Dudley was the heart and catalyst around which the choral department revolved. I guess we had over 200 students involved in various groups, with the chorales being the select ensemble. Miss Dudley's most outstanding quality was that she loved each and every student and provided an atmosphere wherein each student could thrive and succeed to their greatest potential. She was highly qui- she was highly qualified as a well-educated and experienced choral director. She provided an exhaustive repertoire of choral literature that ranged from the latest popular songs, folk songs, spirituals, to the highest quality choral classics. She made opportunities for individuals to sing solos in all styles of vocal repertoire. Groups like Girls Trio, Boys Quartet, Barbershoppers, Letterman-like trios were highly encouraged and given opportunities for public performance. The attraction of the Glee Club and Chorales was quite extraordinary. Students were required to have a study hall in their schedules in those days, and a number of students sang with the choir during fifth period study hall. I secured a permanent pass from study hall to attend chorus classes. So, for my years of choral involvement, I never received any academic credit or grades. What I did receive was vastly more valuable than a couple of credits. Early morning before school, rehearsals were the norm. As I remember, this was the time of day the chorales would rehearse as a non-credit ensemble. Pop groups such as the Generals Three and Girl Watchers trios rehearsed after school as time would permit. I believe it was my junior year that Miss Dudley asked me to go to the front of the room and conduct a selection. Oh no, it couldn't be something as simple as a folk song or a spiritual. It was Haydn's "The Heavens Are Telling" from his creation. I had no trouble conducting the 4/4 time and bluffing my way through the first couple of pages, but when I looked up from the score and saw 80 singers looking right at me, it scared me to death, and I know my eyes immediately dropped down to the printed music again. I know I didn't look up again for the remainder of the song. I'm not sure I'm fully recovered to this day. It was a different time in history in the 1950s and 1960s. One Saturday afternoon, I parked my car close to the music building where I noticed an open window. I stood on the car and pulled myself up through the open window and spent the next several hours reorganizing and alphabetizing the entire choral library. I was called to the office Monday concerning breaking into the school over the weekend. Mr. Carlton didn't know quite what to do with me, but I do remember the situation blew over with little or no consequence. This was an example of loyalty that Ellen Dudley engendered. Like all aspects of life at Lehigh, standards of music excellence were expected in every undertaking in the choral department. We just assumed we would master every note of every song, sing with musical artistry, and thrill every audience. I remember the auditorium was filled to capacity at every concert. 1 or 2 years we participated in the singing Christmas tree at Garrett Coliseum. That was certainly memorable, with the 60-foot tree that held scores of singers. I will never forget the young lady who occupied the top angel spot as she fainted near the end of the concert. Eddie and I scaled the emptying structure and managed to assist the young lady to the floor level. Miss Dudley led this citywide Christmas music extravaganza with such grace, elegance, and excitement. Teachers were required by state education regulations to teach a few life values in addition to their subject content, and had to sign a statement to that effect each month prior to receiving their paychecks. Each month, Miss Dudley would come to class and say, "Don't smoke, don't drink, and be kind to animals." I guess with that she could sign her form with a clear conscience. There are those special teachers in students' lives that are the game changers, those who possess almost indescribable qualities of humanity and become the life hooks on which every important facet of life hangs. Miss Dudley, with her quiet humility, was one of those life-changing influences. Those 3 years of unparalleled, amazing days at Robert E. Lee were all too soon gone by. When I arrived at Troy, of course, the first two classes for which I registered were collegiate singers and marching band. I believe it was during the summer of 1974 that I received a call in Troy that Miss Dudley was hospitalized, gravely ill, in advanced stages of cancer. I made a number of trips to Montgomery to visit her and was admitted to her intensive care room many times, even when family members were not permitted. I was not particularly well equipped to deal with such a beloved teacher and friend in her end-of-life condition, but we enjoyed moments of musical appreciation and love. I was honored to serve as a pallbearer at her funeral. The doors opened to me in choral music through Ellen Dudley blazed the trail to the finest choral opportunities in the world. Singing and touring with the Troy Collegiate Singers, doctoral studies and concerts with outstanding ensembles at Florida State University, many years of concerts with Maestro Robert Shaw in Atlanta, including appearances in Carnegie Hall and Lincoln Center, along with being part of numerous Grammy Award-winning recordings with the Symphony Chorus, all began in the hallowed halls of Robert E. Lee Music Department, both with band and chorus. It is the collective thought of many alumni at Robert E. Lee High School that what we experienced in the early years at Lehigh was truly unique. The right place at the right time with an extraordinary faculty, an extraordinary student body, and unparalleled opportunities. As a number of Alabamians have told me in recent years, Robert E. Lee High School and the students there were legends throughout the state. I suppose the academic offerings and opportunities were equally stellar, but I am certain the opportunities offered in the instrumental and choral music departments were the very best possible. I am thankful to have participated in both. Reflections on John M. Long, Funeral Service, February 26, 2020. I admit I was quite taken back when Dr. Howard called me with an invitation to speak to this congregation of family, friends, and colleagues whom I have known and respected most of my life. Dr. Howard said he wanted a speaker to represent the years at Robert E. Lee and at Troy who have had a lengthy history with Dr. Long. There are so few people still alive who knew Dr. long as I did. I go back long before the opening of Robert E. Lee High School, as I played all over the construction site of the school as it was built. It was 65 years ago in the fall of 1955 that a somewhat slight-framed boy appeared on the bank of the Robert E. Lee High School practice field, where a new bandmaster asked, "Are you here to watch the band practice, little boy?" "No, sir," came the reply. "I am here to play with the band." That young trumpet-playing sophomore was named Billy Hammett. Thus began one of the most classic stories of public school music education ever written. A year later, Billy's brother Kenny joined the band with his trombone. A couple of years later, brother George arrived with his clarinet. George graduated in the spring of 1962 after serving as drum major and knocking the top out of the scale at the All-State Band. The blank year of 1962 to 1963 was the first year of Johnny Long's band that one of the Hammett brothers was not present. It would probably be tacky for me to mention that was the only year of the decade that the concert band did not gain a first division rating at the state festival. In the fall of 1963, yours truly arrived with drumsticks in hand, having been somewhat of a Lee band mascot since the 1950s. Having been taught by the likes of John Harrison, Jim Dinkins, George McCain, Johnny Haynes, and other iconic drummers, I assumed my role in a long line of state championship drummers, and as the final Hammett brother. I reminisce through those early memories to emphasize the unparalleled, extraordinary teaching and educational talents that our master teacher possessed. Nearly every one of you has a titanic boatload of stories of where you are now, the careers you've experienced, where you came from, and the totally unknown fate you would have met without the influence of our rare teacher, Johnny Long. Among this special fraternity and family of all of us under the baton, leadership, and guidance of Dr. Long are those who have received significant recognition in your various professions. Musically, there are Grammy Award winners, landmark recording artists, performers at Carnegie Hall, and more importantly, the hundreds who have had careers in education where you, like Dr. Long, have made indelible impacts on thousands and thousands of young musicians and citizens throughout America. It is this mustard seed effect that we celebrate today. One man and one role through all of these years was indeed a teacher. And what did he teach? He taught the highest values, the highest morals, patriotism, honor, honesty, the love of God, the love of family, and the love of our fellow man. Somewhere in that mix, he also taught the love of good music and the responsibility of reaching for the stars and for perfection. Three of those four Rascal Hammett boys went on to Auburn from Lee High School and enjoyed significant careers. As circumstances worked out, I was the chosen of the lot who had the opportunity to attend Troy State College. I was blessed to lead the drum line in a band that was suspected of causing a great deal of structural damage to stadiums all around the nation with their massive sound. I experienced life's highest highs and a handful of life's lowest lows in Troy. I cannot think of what I might swap for the opportunities. I cannot think of what I might swap for the opportunities, open doors, and friendships made at Troy University. The Johnny Long family, what can I say? Everyone is well aware of the profound guidance and stability provided by Mary Lynn from day one until the very end. John Jr. was my boyhood playmate in Montgomery, classmate at Troy, and lifelong friend. Deborah Lynn was also a childhood playmate and was actually a student of mine as we established the Charles Henderson High School chorus in 1969. Truly, as close family are the Longs. Dr. John and Mary Lynn were the only invited guests for our mother's 80th birthday celebration. They drove from Troy to Montgomery to spend a couple of hours to celebrate one of their favorite band parents and lifelong friends. They were also the only invited guests to attend our family's final visitation at Miss Opal's funeral. Mom and Mary Lynn argued for over 50 years which one of them would wear the red sequins and be featured twirler next week. One of my favorite stories concerning Mary Lynn happened one Saturday during a band reunion weekend. I drove down early to visit band practice and to see many old friends. Mary Lynn met me on the sideline of the practice field with cheerful greetings and questioning where my drum was. I told her I was not participating in the band. I was just there to enjoy the day. She said, "Well, find a drum and get out on the field." I once again kindly protested my intention to simply observe the festivities. With her no-nonsense motherly voice, she retorted, "I said get you a drum and get out on that field." "Yes, ma'am," was the only possible reply. I know you have all had such similar stories and experiences, some more professional, others more personal, and some more exciting. But we all know we have been in the presence of one of the great educators of the past century, one of America's great patriots, and one whose many positive traits we have all tried to emulate. I've heard Dr. Mark Walker say on a number of occasions to the present Sound of the South, "You stand on the shoulders of giants." Well, we old-timers are those little giants who were taught by the big giant. Dr. John took lumps of clay and molded us into works of humanity we would never have become on our own. We thank God for Johnny Long. We ask the Lord's blessings on his family. God bless Jack Hawkins and bless this great university. And as the politicians always say, God bless America.